Hello everyone, it's Kirk Mastin here at Mastin Labs, and today we're going to be talking about perspective control. This is one of the most important things that you can do with your photo, and it uses the transform panel in Lightroom. It is by far my favorite part of Lightroom. I mean, I love the preset section, don't get me wrong, but this tool is amazing, and I believe it can make any photo better. So this is not about what style you shoot in. This message is for every photographer that's watching, every photographer you know. Use the transform tool and make your photos better, and it's so easy to use. So I've got, let me see here. I've got 12 photos from our community. Each one of them can use the transform tool in a slightly different way to be a better photo. And I'm going to go over just really quickly the reasons why you would want to use the transform tool and what situations make it that you really need it. So when you use the transform tool, you are working with perspective in your photo. And I believe that having the perspective corrected in your photo is more relaxing to the viewer. It just feels right. If you're looking at a photo of a building and the building looks like it's falling over backward, that's called keystoning, and it's one of the original reasons that people would use view cameras to do tilt shift to correct the perspective of images to get really beautiful architectural shots. You don't want that keystoning effect, and that's what happens when you point your lens up at something. So when you're not like looking straight across at something like meeting a flat plane in front of you, the object will appear to be falling over backward. So if you look up at a building, with your cell phone or whatever, just like look real quick, take a picture, you'll see that the building appears to be getting smaller at the top, and that is keystoning. That's one of the main reasons you want to correct your perspective. And I believe when you do correct perspective in your image, if you get all the lines straight and everything right, it makes it so much more powerful and so much more pleasing. You can take a very boring photo and actually make it quite an interesting study in space and line just by correcting perspective. The two reasons that you will need, the two things that you might be doing in your shots that will make it so you really need to use perspective correction through the transform tool is that you're shooting up at your subject, like I just talked about, like shooting up at a building, or you're using a wide angle lens. The wider your lens, the more wild the perspective gets, because of just the properties of that lens. So the wider your angle of view, the more lines will just get out of balance and look weird. And we can fix all that in Lightroom. So let's get started. I'm going to start with an image that has a lot of keystoning in it. So this image by Christopher Drinkard, if you look at it, the columns in the background behind the bridal party, they look like they're falling over backward. And that is due to a problem with perspective. So the photographer is shooting at this bridal party with a 23mm lens pointing up just a little bit, and we've got a lot of perspective problems because of that. I'm going to do a quick edit with Mastin Labs and then show you the transform tool. So I'm just going to go to Kodak Everyday Original, go to one of my favorites. We'll do Ektar, increase the exposure a little bit here. And I'm going to take away the vignetting around the corners of the image with lens correction. Although I think this lens is not supported by Lightroom directly. Oh, it already has lens correction applied through the camera. Okay, all right, so we've done our basic edit before and after with Ektar. Looks great. The way that you can make this image 25.5% better is by correcting the perspective. And you do that by going down to the transform panel in Lightroom. So on the right hand side, there's a little section called transform. You open that up, and you've got a few options when you open it up. You've got this little honeycomb thing here, and then you've got off, auto, guided, level, vertical, and full. And then you've got manual perspective controls underneath. in the essence of editing quickly, I recommend that you don't touch any of the manual controls. You should be able to get a really perfect correction of your perspective just by using one of the buttons up here, and they all work a little bit differently. So auto is just Lightroom using its own best judgment and algorithm to correct all the lines in the photo. Most of the time, this fixes everything. It's interesting. One thing that I was always confused about if there's any veteran Transform Panel users out there is what's the difference between auto and full. So you've got auto, guided. Guided is this little honeycomb thing, and I'll show you that in a second. You've got level. Level is just finding the horizon line in the photo and making that level. And then you also have vertical correction, which is just looking at vertical lines and making those correct. And then you have full. Now full is interesting because it's going to try to get everything correct at the same time, no matter what the results are. And sometimes they look crazy, and sometimes they look even better than auto. Auto is when Lightroom just decides to use either vertical or horizontal or both or whatever at its own discretion. And full forces Lightroom to use all of those different angles together at the same time, no matter what the results are. So if I go through this, so here's off, here's no perspective correction. Here's auto, this is just Lightroom, doing what it thinks is best. You can see that the side of the building here, like this line in the corner, is not quite straight, but most of the lines in the middle are right. If I was to try to fix this just with the manual tools, which I don't really recommend, I could try to straighten out the lines on the right side. So you can see the image is kind of shifting, like I'm holding a piece of paper in front of me on a plane and moving it back and forth. I could try to correct the lines on the side, but then a lot of other things get wonky. So I'm going to just leave that alone. Auto does a pretty good job. I could also do level, just level. So I'm going to turn it off for a second. I'm just going to hit level. And you can see that the pillars are still bent backward. We're still having that keystoning. However, the photo is now level. Lightroom kind of honed in on this horizontal line cutting through the image here, thinking that that is the horizon, and it straightened out the image. But that's not correct for this image. I'm going to turn it off again. I'll show you vertical. So vertical looked at the vertical columns in the photo and it corrected for that, but it did not correct for the horizon line. So the horizon is just a tiny bit off kilter. I'm going to turn it off again. And now I'm going to go to full. Full is trying to correct all the lines at the same time, no matter the outcome. So I'll show you the difference between full and auto. So that's auto. And here's full. The difference is that it's pulling the top left corner forward a little bit if you were to think of the image as a flat plane. And I think it does that at the expense of the columns just a little bit. I think auto actually looks better than full, rather than having Lightroom correct the whole thing. But that's totally up to you. You can click back and forth, doesn't hurt your photo, or you can just turn it off. Okay, so here's the last tool that you can use. If nothing else in those 6 buttons, if none of those other buttons did it for you, if none of them corrected the photo well for you, you can click this little honeycomb thing, or you can click guided, it doesn't matter. And now you have this tool where you actually draw lines on your photo and you're telling Lightroom which lines to try to correct. So you even get this like loop where you're zoomed in, so you can see his face right here. You want to use this to find an edge that you believe to be straight. So I'm going to take this shadow transition line here on the column. I'm just going to click on it and I'm going to drag down to somewhere lower and try to make that, exactly along that line. And then I'm going to take the way I work is I do a vertical line and then a horizontal line, a vertical line, a horizontal line, until you've run out of lines that you can put on here, and it should correct the image. So I drew one vertical. Now I'm going to find a horizontal that I can, put this on top of. So there we go. So now you can see it's starting to correct the image. The right side of the image is pretty correct, but the left side is still kind of crazy looking. So I'm going to keep drawing lines. I'm going to find a line here on the corner of this column, drop it down to the other corner down here. Now it's getting, you know, we're seeing more correction in the image. I find that the image looks a little bit like it's kind of bowing out, like the sides of the image look a little bit off to me. So now I'm going to find another horizontal line over here where I'm seeing some issues. And there we go. So you can see as I add lines, the image is getting more and more correct. Correct being that the perspective is correct and the lines are correct and everything is lying on a flat plane now in relative position to the viewer. So let me know if you have any questions as I go. That's kind of a brief overview of the tool, and I'm going to edit a bunch more images so you can see how it works in different situations. I would say for this image though, the simplest, instead of drawing all those lines, that's really for images that are really confusing to Lightroom. The simplest is just to hit auto. It should be just a one-click correction. So if you just were to hit auto, Lightroom does it, and it looks really good. I could not turn in an image that wasn't correct. I could not turn in an image that has keystoning in it. Me personally, I could not do it. It would just drive me nuts, and it's just super easy to fix. And sometimes you have to take an image where you're pointing your lens not on a horizontal or not on a perpendicular plane to your subject. Sometimes you have to point up to capture some detail above your subject. That's totally normal. So you can do that, but you just need to remember to correct it later in Lightroom. So there you go. Big explanation. A lot of information coming at you. We'll do a bunch more though, and you'll see exactly how this works. So this is by Christian Napolitano. I love this image. I love the color in it. The composition is very interesting too. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to do, I don't know, gold 200 from the Kodak Everyday Original Pack. I'm going to increase the exposure, warm it up just a little bit. And now we've got, I love this image, but it's got some really crazy perspective issues, which is why it's so perfect for this video. If I was to try to correct this myself, man, it would take me forever. I could try to use these tools, but you can see now the door is all stretched out. There's just a lot of issues here, and it's really time consuming. Instead, I can use the upright tools to get this to look nearly perfect. So with auto is close, but the building is still kind of tipping away from me. I'm trying to get a perspective where everything is completely flat to me. I'm going to do my best to get that. I think we can get it a little bit closer. Let's see how full works. There we go. That looks really good. That's kind of an amazing transformation. So you can see before and after. Just by correcting the perspective in the image, by getting the door to be facing the viewer like kind of dead on, like directly at you, and getting as many of the lines to be, I don't know, in the right spot, it really makes the image much, much more powerful and much, I don't know, the composition is much better. It's just a prettier image. It's more pleasing to the eye. It's more interesting. If I wanted to get this even a little more correct, you can see that the shutter over here is not totally straight up and down. It's kind of veering up and off to the side. And then you can see this window is not really completely, like, I'll show you. The top of this window here, it's not level, like the top of this window frame. So if I wanted to get this to be even a little more correct, I could try to use the upright tool or the guided upright tool, this little thing here, and draw my own lines and see if I can do a better job than Lightroom. I don't think I will. This is a very tricky image, but I'm going to try it just so you can see how it works. So I'm going to draw this line across. So that's my first horizontal line. I'm going to do a vertical one. I think the door is really important to get right. So there's my, it's not quite right, but we'll see if we can get there. Let's draw another one across here. All right, now we're getting there. Much better. I'm warping the image a little bit just by my the extreme corrections that need to happen on this. There's one more. Let's see here. Let's do the other side of this. I almost feel like I'm showing you the guided portion just to show you how good of a job Lightroom's own algorithm does. Okay, I've reached my maximum number of lines, so I'm going to get rid of this one. I'm going to instead use it over here. So you can only put 4 down. So if you're repeating yourself a little bit on some of them, it might be worth just erasing a line and using it somewhere else. I don't know if this is a better job than using Lightroom's own algorithm, like using auto or full. Full seemed to be the best one so far. But this is a really great opportunity to show you what is happening to the image. You can see that there's white space appearing up here and down here. That's because the image, if you imagine it as a one-dimensional object like a piece of paper floating in space, the way that perspective correction works is that it is being virtually tilted and shifted in front of you, the viewer. And sometimes if you tilt and shift a flat plane too much, you reveal that there's nothing behind it. Like you're getting to the edge of the image, there's nothing there. So Lightroom just fills it in with a white canvas background. You could take this into Photoshop and do like content aware fill and actually create background where there isn't any, where it's just white. If you wanted to. If you wanted to be super fussy about it. I personally won't do that unless there's some really compelling reason for me to keep the entire image. What is much easier to do is just to hit this one button down here that says constrain crop. And what it does is that it gives you the maximum image size while cropping the image where it meets the canvas in the background where there's no information. So that's a lot to take in. That's a lot to take in. If you have any questions about it, please put them in the comments and I can go over that again. But just try using this tool and you'll get it pretty quickly what's happening. Okay, so I actually have to say that I'm going to make a duplicate of this. I'm going to compare Lightroom's auto, or full, I mean, with my version. Whoops. There we go. So we have Lightroom's version on the, now I'm confused. Is it on the left?
Well, the select is on the right.
Let me see. Well, anyway, you can see they're a little bit different. I think mine is on the right.
Yeah, I think so. Hit N. No. So yours is on the left.
Mine's on the left. Oh, great. Okay, so there's mine. And there's Lightroom's. Okay, Lightroom did a better job than me. Lightroom is better than me at perspective control. However, it is really, really good to see how the guided tool works because there are some situations where it is the only way you can correct the image. Like there's just too many lines in the image for Lightroom to really read it and make a good perspective correction on its own. So, all right, let's do a few more. So this image is by Madison Friel. I picked this one because it shows a different kind of keystoning. So this is shot with a 24mm lens. It's a very wide lens. And you can see that the photographer was trying to get the top of the doorway and also show a little bit of this bride's dress. However, the lens is tilted a little bit down from being level. And that automatically, especially if it's a wide lens, makes the background really have a strange perspective. It's like keystoning, but kind of in reverse. You can see that the doorway behind her is getting smaller at the bottom, and we know that it's a straight doorway. So this is another great opportunity to use transform to make this photo a million times better. Not a million times better, 25.5% better, because it's already a very nice image. But I absolutely have to have my images perspective corrected, or else I just don't feel they're finished. So let's do a Fujicolor original. I'm gonna try to do a light and airy edit inside. So Fuji 400H. There's a lot of vignetting in this image, so I'm gonna use lens correction on. And then I'm going to increase the exposure, use all soft to bring out more detail, and do a tiny white balance adjustment. So this is not an editing video in the traditional sense where I'm going to stop and talk about all the presets. We've got a million of those. This is really just about the transform tool. But if you have any questions while I'm editing, feel free to ask those too, and I can go back over that. So here is your basic indoor edit with Fuji 400H. I'm going to go down to the transform panel, and I usually just start with auto and just see what happens from there. Okay, auto could not detect this doorway. I think maybe the colors are too similar in the background, or there's not enough distinct lines. I don't think it can see this side of the doorway at all, but we'll keep trying. Let's try full. Okay, this is a good image because it's showing when Lightroom is really flippin' confused. So this is not going to work. She looks like she's 20 feet tall. So we're going to turn that off, and I could try level. Level's not going to do it because that's not the problem here. And then here's a vertical adjustment. It can't even see the doorway. So this is a perfect candidate for a guided perspective correction. So I grab this little honeycomb tool, or you can click guided, doesn't matter. I just grab the tool. And then I'm going to go to this doorway here, and I'm going to just try to find a start and a stop along this edge and at this top edge here, so that I can give Lightroom a few points of reference for what to correct. All right, so we're getting there. So these lines are now straight, and now we're to the side that Lightroom could not see. It just can't see over here. There we go. Looking better. Okay, a little bit of the background canvas has been revealed because the image had to be tilted upward to get the perspective correct. So now I'm just going to hit constrain crop. There's one more line that isn't quite right, and that's the floor. I'm going to try to see if I can correct that also. It could be really hard. Oh, look at that. Sweet. Okay. There we go. Everything is correct. Unfortunately, a lot of the detail at the top of the door is now gone because it just disappeared beyond the canvas when I corrected the background. There's a little trick though you can do to see if there is still some detail up there. It's one of the only times I go into the manual transform panel. But if you just go to scale, you can actually scale the image down and reveal everything. So, oh, this is kind of cool. If I go way down, you can see how this image was manipulated. I think that's so cool. This like really shows what Lightroom is doing to get the perspective right. But I sometimes will pull the scale way down to see what's there, and then decide what I want to reconstruct in Photoshop if I want to keep, say, the top of that doorway. So I pulled back the scale. We've got these stripes that are showing here of nothing. Those are so easy to fix in Photoshop. If I just left it like that and brought it in, let me see here. I'll do it for you. Why not? So this is this is what I would do for this image. I would get the background correct. It's going to reveal a little bit of white where there is no image at all. I'm going to pull it into Photoshop, and then I'm going to use the healing tools here to rebuild this background, and it should work pretty well. So I'm going to grab the spot healing brush tool. There's a million ways you can do this, but I'm just going to grab that for now. I'm going to make my brush real big, and then I'm just going to, wait a minute. I'm using someone else's computer, so this is not exactly, oh, there we go. That's pretty good. If I had more time, I would possibly even cut out part of this wall and clone it or move it over or stretch it. Oh, actually, that's another trick. So, okay, I'm totally going off course here, but bear with me. You can use the healing or the spot healing brush tool, whatever, to do what I just did. Another little really cool trick, and I don't know if this is kosher or not, is you actually make a selection on the side here. You hit Command T and then hold down Shift, and you can actually like stretch the background. And then hit Command D. It made the floor a little bit funky, but man, you can fix the wall in like a second and it's perfect because you're literally just stretching the background over the part that's missing. Yeah, boy howdy, there we go. There is your image. I'm going to flatten this real quick, and then I'm going to put it back in Lightroom, and you'll be able to see the difference. All right. Let me go all the way back to before any perspective correction. I'll show you the difference. No. There we go. Okay, so the image on the left is the one that I just took into Photoshop. It just looks correct. We've turned an image that had some severe perspective problems into a really nice, clean, easy to look at, really nice perspective image on the left. And it's really easy. I mean, I didn't even really need to take it into Photoshop. I just wanted to preserve the top of the doorway. So you can see this is just showing the perspective correction between the two and going from no correction on the right to corrected on the left. All right, let's move on. Here's a tricky one. I find stairs to be really tricky. No matter if you're using, the guided tool yourself or using the auto tools in Lightroom, this is a tough one. We've got these columns in the background. We've got this hand railing shooting off to the side and kind of coming out all weird. This is shot again with a 24mm lens, so you're going to have some severe distortion and weird perspective issues and vignetting, but I think we can make it look great. So this is by Rachel Reed. Let's go to Ilford. Okay, we got an Ilford fan in the back. Oh, damn, that looks good. All right, let's do Ilford. This is Pan F from the Ilford pack. And yeah, that's an easy edit. That's one click. I'm going to do perspective or lens correction on. It looked kind of cool, the vignetting. So what I'm going to do is do lens correction on. I'm going to come back. I'm going to uncorrect the vignetting. That looks really good. Okay, next. So you could deliver the image like this, probably be fine, but we can make it 25.5% better just by hitting auto or one of these buttons. So let's see what happens. Holy cow, he has a very long foot. So auto is not cutting it on this one. Man, that 24mm lens, man. Whatever, we'll make it work. All right, let's try vertical. Nope, that's not looking good. Let's try full. Oh my God, his leg is like 9 feet long. That is not cool. All right, let's see what I can do. Let's see if humans are still needed, or we can be completely replaced by machines. Let's see if I can stand up for the human race here. All right, so we got one line there. Let's do a line down here. All right. All right, Lightroom, where are you struggling? I think this hand railing is throwing you off. Yep, that's what keeps throwing you off. Okay, let's forget about this railing and correct the rest and see how good we can make it. Now we're talking. All right, do I have one more line? That's 1, 2, 3. I got one more. So let's see if we can get this side fixed. Ah, all right, that's one line too far. All right, that's about as correct as it can get. Maybe I could add one more line down here without it falling apart. No, okay, it doesn't care about that one. Let's give it one more shot. What if we do the inside of this door? It's not as extreme. Oh, we don't want the super long foot. So we're gonna call it good right there. And I'm gonna scale it down to get the tip of his foot. His foot is a little bit long. I don't like that too much. Maybe we can back it off here. Scale it down. We're gonna do constrained crop. All right, so I am gonna get into the manual controls here for a second. I'm gonna go to vertical, and I'm gonna try to make his foot not look so damn long by just doing something like that. The problem we're running into here is that we're shooting with a 24mm lens, and anytime an object gets to the edge of a super wide lens, it gets stretched. So the next time you have your 24mm lens or your 18mm lens or whatever, try taking a picture of someone with their head like right near the edge, and it'll turn into like this long like egg. It'll be like this crazy shape. And that's because the way the lens is, it kind of pulls things apart around the edges. It has no correction in the lens itself as you get towards the edge of the lens. So his foot is like right on the edge, and that's why it's getting stretched so far down. But I've been able to kind of compensate for that a little bit by using the guided tool plus a little bit of the manual adjustments in the transform panel, which I normally say you don't need. But this one I picked because I knew it would be tricky. So here is before and after. You know, some of it is correct, like the stairs are nice and correct, and this column is correct, but everything on the left side is a little bit crazy. That's about as good as I can get it, but I'm pretty happy. I think it looks good. All right. Wow, that was a doozy. That was a hard one. Let's see, what else we got here? Let's do one more inside. And then I've got one outside to just show horizon correction, and then we'll wrap it up. So this image has a lot of vertical lines in it. It's inside. It doesn't have really bad keystoning because the photographer was roughly on the same level as the subject and was able to shoot perpendicular to the wall behind them. That's good. So if you're ever out shooting and you have the opportunity to be level with your subject, like point your camera level at them, not up or down, do that. Makes it a lot easier. So let's do Ektar inside. So this is Ektar 100 from the Kodak Everyday Original Pack. I'm going to use all soft, and then I'm going to increase the exposure. And her veil and everything is a little bit blue, so I think I'm going to increase the white balance just a little bit. And I'm going to bring the tint towards green a tad. That looks pretty good. Okay, so from here, the next really big step again is getting the perspective correct. Let's try auto. And that looks pretty good. That looks really good. I'm just going to compare it against full. Let's see how full with the crop constraint looks. That looks really good, actually. Okay, it had to do some massive corrections, but I think this is a little more pleasing. That looks really dead on straight. Like if you look at the side of the image here, this like steel girder, it's pretty much even all the way down. That's really good. I mean, this is about as correct as you can get. And if you look on the other side, you can see that this column here, there's an even amount of this column all the way up and down. So we have like no keystoning whatsoever. This is a very, very correct image, and it looks really nice. So yeah, there you go. Really, really good tool. One more I'm going to show you here. I wanted to do something with just the horizon line, and I love this image. This is by Kesniel Casey Remiendo. And I wanted to see if the transform tool could detect that this image is tilted. This is inside of like a car or a taxi or something, and it's really low light, but I just have a gut feeling that Lightroom is going to see the back of this seat here and correct it. Let's do gold 200. Increase the exposure. Oh yeah, it looks so good. Okay, let's see, all soft. Yeah, let's do all soft. All right, that was super easy edit. Love the colors. So to make this a little bit better, let's try the transform panel. So here's auto. It didn't detect the seat. Let's try vertical, level, okay. Oh, that's too bad. So Lightroom can't detect any straight lines in this image. This is kind of pushing it, so I'm not too surprised. There's two ways that I could correct this. I could just hit R and just do an image rotation, which is probably how I would do it. Or if I wanted to, I don't know, play around, I could do the guided tool and just draw a few lines that I think should be, you know, perpendicular to each other. That's not bad either. That's cool. Actually, that preserves a little more of the reflection on the inside of the window on the left side. That looks good. So yeah, there you have it. That is the transform tool. It's a little bit tricky to explain because I don't have all the architectural lingo to describe what I'm trying to talk about. But basically what you're doing is you are fixing issues with the image being, you know, tilting back or having some kind of weird perspective because of the environment you're in. And Lightroom, for the most part, will correct it with auto. Auto will get it 75% of the time, and full will get it 25% of the time. If you're outdoors and you're like shooting at a beach and there's no buildings or anything, you can just use level and get the perspective or get the horizon level like that. So, which is really useful too. So I hope that was helpful. We really enjoy doing these live edits. It's really fun to go over the tools that I love the most. If you're not already part of the Mastin Labs community, search for us on Facebook, come and join us. And even if you don't own anything, feel free to drop a raw file in with a JPEG, like a JPEG preview of what the file is, into the community, and you'll have a ton of people edit it for you and show you what is possible, because we believe it shouldn't be difficult to make a beautiful photo, and we're here to help you every step of the way. So come join us. All right, till next time.